So this is an example of a graph of an inequality. Remember, inequalities are things that have less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. So these are all inequalities. Typically, we graph equations that have the equal sign. Now we're graphing with one of these signs. So we graph it the same way. We are just going to be shading half of our side, like one side or the other, when it's an inequality. Another difference between regular graphing and these, if we just have a less than or greater than, it's a dashed line or dotted line. If it has the equal to, then it's a solid line. All right, so this brings us to our first example. So first thing we need to do is graph. So in order to graph this, we're just going to change this to an equal sign so it looks like things that we've done in the past. So we have x plus 4y is equal to 2. Now we want this to be in slope-intercept form, y is equal to mx plus b, so then we can graph it. So we need to rearrange our equation a little bit here. So we want it to be y equals. So what do we need to do first to get our equation to be y equals? Subtract x, perfect. So we have 4y is equal to, I'm going to put the x first just because the x comes first in our standard form here. So negative x plus 2. And now what can I do to get rid of this 4 and move it to the other side? Divide by 4. So since 4 is being multiplied to y, to move it, I'm going to divide by 4. So I'm dividing everything by 4. So I have y is equal to negative 1 over 4x plus, I'm going to simplify. How do I simplify 2 over 4? 1/2. So now I can graph it. We always start with our y-intercept when graphing. So we're going to go up 1/2, put a point there. And then our slope is negative 1/4. So that means we're going to go down 1 and to the right 4. So remember, we have rise over run. But since our 1 is negative, we're going to go down 1. So we're going to go down to negative 1/2, and then we're going to go to the right 4. So we'll have a point there. We can keep going and adding more points and more points. So we could go up 1/2 and to the left 4, we would have a point there. We could just keep throwing on points in here, but once we have 2, we can just connect our points with the line. So that's our graph. Going back to our inequality, does this greater than sign tell us that we have a solid line or a dashed line? Dashed. So I'm just going to change this into a dashed line here. All right, so we have our graph. Now we need to plug in a point. So we can plug in any point we want to here. My suggestion is always plug in 0, 0. Step 2. Now we're on step 2. Plug in a point. Does 0, 0 fall to the above our line, like above on the right or below on the left? Below on the left. So we're going to plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. So we have 0 plus 4 times 0 is less than 2. So 0, or no, this is greater than. 0 is greater than 2. Is 0 greater than 2?
No.
No. So this means our point does not fall on this side. So if it does not work, we have to shade the opposite side. So we're going to shade everything above and on the right of our line here. So if it does not work, we have to pick the opposite side. And we shade. So step 3 is shade. And then we're done. All right. So step 1, we need a graph. So in order to graph, we want our equation to be y is equal to mx plus b. So we need to rearrange our equation. What can we do to get this to y equals? Add x to both sides. So 2y is equal to x plus 4. Now what can I do to get rid of this 2? Divide 2 to everything. So I have y is equal to 1/2 x. What does 4 over 2 simplify to? What does 4 over 2 simplify to? 2 over 1, which is just 2. So our slope is 1/2, and our y-intercept is 2. So when we go to graph it, we're going to go up 2, put a point there. That's where we cross the y-axis at 2, so that's our first point. Now our slope, we're going to go up 1 and to the right 2. So up 1 to the right 2, we're going to have a point there. We can keep going up 1 to the right 2, up 1 to the right 2, keep putting points, but once we have 2 points, we know our graph is just going to go through those 2 points. Looking at our inequality, is this a solid line or a dotted line? I'll go back at the end. It's a dashed line. So since it doesn't have that equal to sign on the bottom, it has to be a dashed line. What do we do next? Plug in a point. What's the point that we're going to plug in? We can plug in any point we want to, but the easiest one to always plug in is 0, 0. So we're going to plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. So we have 0 plus 0 is greater than 4. Is 0 greater than 4? No. So this does not work. So since we plugged in 0, 0, are we going to shade above or below our line? Above. So we're shading up here. So the slope was 1/2. So I started at this point, and then I went up 1 and over to the right 2. So rise, over, run. So we go up 1, over 2. So if we plug in a point down here on the bottom side and it doesn't work, that means all of the numbers on the left side up top above our line are going to work. So that's why we shade the opposite. If it doesn't work, we shade in the opposite side of what we plugged in. If it did work, we would shade below. Only 3 steps. Graph, plug in, shade.
It doesn't work in the worst, and you have to go rise over run from the second.
Yeah, I mean, in graphing, there's a lot of steps. But you guys graphed last year in algebra, so you should know how to do this. Okay, so again, graph, plug in a point, shade. So we want our equation to be y is equal to mx plus b. So how do we get this equation to be y is equal to? What do we need to do? Minus 3x. So we minus 3x on both sides. So I have y is equal to negative 3x minus 8. Once we get that y is equal to, we're done. Now we have our slope and we have our y-intercept. So on our graph, our line is going to cross the y-axis at negative 8. So we're going to go down 8. Put a point there. Now our slope is negative 3, which is technically negative 3 over 1. So we're going to go down 3 and to the right 1. So we're going to go down 3 and to the right 1, and we put a point there. So I just took our slope and found our second point. Are we going to have a solid line or a dashed line here? A dashed line. So since it doesn't have that equal to part, we have a dashed line. So we're going to connect our 2 points here with a dashed line. What do we do next? We're going to plug in 0, 0. So we plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. So we have 0 plus 0 is greater than negative 8. Is 0 greater than negative 8? Yes. So since this works, we're going to shade the side that that 0, 0 is on. So are we going to shade the right of this line or the left of the line? The right. So the right above, over here, where that 0, 0 is. So if it works, we shade the side that the 0, 0 is on. Okay, so for shading, we plug in any point. So we picked to plug in 0, 0. If it works, so we got 0 is greater than negative 8, this works, this is true. So that means we're going to shade everything on that side that the 0, 0 is on.
Okay, thank you.
So if it doesn't work, you shade that.
If it doesn't work, we shade the opposite side. Okay. This one is our last example for today. So we have y is less than or equal to 4. So we're going to plug in, or we're going to graph y is equal to 4. Is this already in slope-intercept form? Yeah, we have that y is equal to. We can't do anything else here, so we just leave it. Can we graph this?
No.
So let's go up to y is equal to 4. Put a point there. What's our rise over run?
4 over 1.
Do we have a number in front of our x? Do we have an x?
Yeah.
So do we have a slope?
Yeah.
No, so our slope is 0. So what happens when our slope is 0? Can we go up and over? No. When our slope is 0, we just have a flat line. Let me change the color so we can see. So our graph of y is equal to 4 is this pink line here. So we go up to 4, because y is our vertical axis. So we go up to y is equal to 4, put a point there, and then we put a vertical line through it. So no matter what our x is, y is always going to be 4. So if we plugged in 5 for x, there's no x to plug in a 5, so y is always going to be 4. So that's why we have a horizontal line at 4. All right, moving on to step 2. What are we going to plug in? 0, 0. So we plug in 0, 0. We're plugging it back into the original here. So we plug in 0 for x. We don't have an x, so we don't plug in anything. And then we plug in 0 for y. So we have 0 is less than or equal to 4. Is this true?
Yes.
Yes. So since this is true, we shade the side that 0, 0 is on. So are we going to shade above our line or below? Below. So we shade everything below.
Part 2.
Yeah, we're going to do part 2 tomorrow. Or Friday. One of those days. So this is it.
This is part 1.
Oh, no, you're not going to turn in the notes today.